In America, we hold a fundamental truth to be self-evident. Every individual is innocent until proven guilty. This principle is the cornerstone of our justice system. It protects us from the whims of the powerful and the tyranny of the majority. Yet, time and again, we see this principle challenged, often in the name of safety or security. We are told that to protect ourselves from the actions of a few, we must be willing to sacrifice some of our freedoms. But at what cost? When we punish the many for the actions of a few, we erode the very foundations of a just and free society. History is replete with examples where the rights of the many have been trampled upon due to the actions of a few. The Prohibition era, fueled by fears of societal decay attributed to alcohol consumption, led to the criminalization of a substance enjoyed responsibly by millions. This misguided attempt at social engineering not only failed to curb alcohol consumption, but also gave rise to organized crime and widespread lawlessness. The National Firearms Act of 1934, passed in response to gang violence, imposed taxes and registration requirements on certain firearms. While arguably well-intentioned, this law set a precedent for further federal intrusion into the constitutionally protected right to bear arms. The Gun Control Act of 1968, enacted following the assassinations of prominent figures, further restricted firearm ownership and established categories of prohibited individuals. While intended to prevent tragedies, these laws placed burdens on law-abiding citizens while doing little to stop criminals intent on obtaining firearms illegally. The fundamental unfairness of punishing the many for the actions of a few is self-evident. It is a violation of basic justice to strip individuals of their rights or freedoms due to the actions of others over whom they have no control. Such actions create a climate of fear and suspicion, where individuals are hesitant to exercise their rights for fear of being unjustly targeted. This erosion of liberty sets a dangerous precedent. Once we accept the premise that it is acceptable to curtail the rights of some to address the actions of a few, we open the door to further restrictions down the line. The slippery slope argument is not a fallacy in these cases. It is a stark warning from history. Time and again, we have witnessed how seemingly small encroachments on individual liberties can snowball into larger, more oppressive measures. The Patriot Act, passed in the wake of the September 11th attacks, is a prime example. While marketed as a necessary tool to combat terrorism, this law dramatically expanded the government's surveillance powers, often at the expense of individual privacy and due process rights. Section 4. Seeds of discord, sowing mistrust and division. When governments implement policies that target entire groups based on the actions of a few, they sow seeds of mistrust and division within society. This is particularly true when those targeted belong to specific racial, ethnic, or religious groups. Stop-and-frisk policies, while touted as a crime-fighting tool, have been widely criticized for disproportionately targeting minority communities. Such policies, rather than fostering a sense of unity and shared responsibility, breed resentment and hostility towards law enforcement and create a climate of fear and alienation within the targeted communities. Similarly, internet censorship laws, often justified in the name of combating hate speech or protecting children, can be easily abused to silence dissent and limit freedom of expression. The potential for such laws to be used to target specific viewpoints or stifle political opposition is a serious concern. When governments hold the power to determine what is acceptable speech and what is not, the very foundation of a free and open society is threatened. Section 5. The seductive lure of power, abuse and its consequences. History teaches us that power, even when wielded with good intentions, can be easily abused. When we grant governments broad authority to restrict the rights of the many in the name of security or safety, we create a dangerous precedent. Those in power, even if well-intentioned, may be tempted to exploit these expanded powers for their own gain, or to silence dissent. Moreover, once such powers are granted, they are notoriously difficult to roll back, even when the perceived threat has subsided. The erosion of civil liberties is often a gradual process, implemented incrementally and justified by appealing to fear and the promise of security. Yet each encroachment, however small, chips away at the foundation of a free society. It is essential to remember that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. We must be wary of any attempt to limit the rights of the many for the actions of a few, no matter how well-intentioned or seemingly insignificant. Section 6. Guardians of liberty, the Constitution's enduring relevance. The United States Constitution, with its Bill of Rights, stands as a bulwark against government overreach and a testament to the importance of individual liberty. The Founding Fathers, acutely aware of the dangers of tyranny, enshrined these rights to protect individuals from the whims of the majority and the excesses of government power. The Constitution's framework of limited government, separation of powers, and individual rights is not merely a relic of the past, it is a living document that provides a roadmap for a just and free society. The principles enshrined in the Constitution are as relevant today as they were centuries ago. The right to free speech, the freedom of religion, the right to bear arms, the right to privacy, and the right to due process are not mere suggestions, they are fundamental rights that protect the essence of what it means to be a free individual in a free society. Section 7. Reaffirming our principles. A call for individual accountability. We must reaffirm our commitment to individual accountability and the presumption of innocence. Instead of punishing the many for the actions of a few, we should focus on holding individuals accountable for their own actions. This means strengthening law enforcement, ensuring swift and just punishment for criminals. It also means resisting the urge to compromise our principles in the name of security. The true measure of a just and free society is not how it treats its majority, but how it protects the rights of its individuals, even those who have erred. By upholding the principles of individual accountability, due process, and limited government, we can ensure that the rights of all citizens are protected and that justice prevails. We must never forget that the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. We must be the guardians of our own liberties, resisting any attempt to erode the foundations of a free society. Section 8. The Constitution's call to action. In conclusion, the Founding Fathers were very specific about what the government could and could not do when they ratified the Constitution. The federal government has a very limited list of things they can regulate, and the rights enumerated in the Constitution are not on that list. The 10th Amendment gave any powers not given to the federal government to the states and the people. The 14th Amendment removes the power to restrict individual rights enumerated in the Constitution from the states. Also, there is the Supremacy Clause that sets forth a hierarchy of laws. First, the Constitution, second, the federal government, third, the state. If we follow the Constitution as it was written, then no government at any level has the right or the power to restrict or infringe on our God-given rights. Any public official who pushes any infringement or restriction on individual rights should be removed from office and charged with sedition. The only limits to individual rights are on the government and their power to infringe on said rights. There are no constitutional limits on speech, religion, assembly, firearms, or any of our other rights. And that is common sense. We need a return to the constitutionally limited government that the founders gave us. If we can't do that, then we have the right and the duty to remove our consent to be governed. Enough is enough. This is not just a political statement, it is a call to action for every citizen. We must educate ourselves, stand firm in our principles, and demand accountability from those in power. The preservation of our freedoms depends on our vigilance and our willingness to act. The Constitution is not a relic of the past, it is a living document that demands our respect and our protection. My rights do not end where your feelings begin. If I do or say something that offends you, then you are offended. It says more about you than anything I said or did. My rights are not up for negotiation. I will not respect or follow any law that restricts or infringes on my rights. Thank you for watching, and remember, the price of freedom is eternal vigilance. Stay frosty, my friends. Keep your head down and your powder dry.